By the time you get to metrics and reports that you present to an executive, there are like five people kind of who are involved in the pipeline of building that, right? There's a data engineer who's bringing data together, then there's an analyst who's kind of building the metrics, then there's another business person who's kind of building the reports and the insights on top of it. There are like four or five people get involved to a point where by the time these insights reach executives in a board meeting or weekly review meetings, there's no one person who can exactly explain how this whole thing has come up.
I'm Jake Aaron Villarreal, born and raised in Silicon Valley. I'm here to take you behind the scenes to share what it's like to be a startup founder, the journey they're on, problems they face, the products they build in an effort to make our lives better. I'm excited to have with us today Prasanna Venkatesan, founder and CEO of Petavue. Prasanna, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jake. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to have this chat with you.
Well, I'm excited to have you on as well. A little bit more about Prasanna. He leads the company. It's an AI native data analytics platform. Previously, he sold his company to ZoomInfo during COVID, serving as VP, where he built their India operations from 15 to 500 people. He's building his third company focused on delivering breakthrough AI solutions for enterprise data teams. Before we jump in here, Prasanna, where are you joining us from today?
I live in the Bay Area in a city called Newark. It's on the east side of the Bay. I live here with my wife. So yeah, it's a very pleasant morning today here.
Yeah. Well, I love that part of the Bay Area. I'm from there, and there's so much innovation and so much happening with AI and data and technology and innovation. Great place to be. We always believe proximity is key to growth, and
Correct.
you're around the investor community, the talent, the innovation ideas. It's not uncommon just to walk down the street, it seems like these days, and any coffee shop you walk into, you see founders talking to founders and venture capitalists talking to other founders. It's exciting times. So we'll jump
Totally.
into what you're doing, what you're building, who it's helping, why it matters. But before we do that, let's go a little bit deeper into your origin story. Walk us through kind of where you originally came from and what early experiences kind of helped shape the path you're on today.
Great. So I'm originally born in a city called Chennai. It's in southern part of India, but I grew up in Mumbai, which is kind of the business capital of India, large metropolis. And I grew up in a very diverse environment. Mumbai is very diverse, so you typically see in your school classroom you kind of see people from all over the country. So that kind of tuned me to work with a diverse set of people very early in my life. I think that kind of inspired me a lot. Another thing that I need to mention is I grew up in a very conservative household of sorts. So most of the family is we are priests. So I come from a priest
Wow.
family. Yeah. So I'm one of the very very few people who kind of stepped out, to put it that way. So it's like 80% of men in my house are priests, and so that had a big influence in my upbringing. So faith was a very very important part of life, and so you can say I was kind of half trained to be a priest. In our family, that's kind of the norm. And so those two factors, I think, were the biggest influence. Of course, parents, they always have the biggest influence in your lives, right? So I think these three factors, I would say, kind of shaped who I am. And yeah, that's kind of the quick background.
Yeah. Well, I love the priest aspect of it. I think that there's like spirituality and belief and doing the right things and all that plays really well into running businesses. I mean, it's a very spiritual experience if you think about it. Like,
Totally.
you're dealing with people, emotions. 80% of business is psychology. So working through the process of leading, mentoring, the ups and the downs. I mean, you got to have a strong anchor to keep you.
And most importantly, I keep drawing this comparison with my family, right? I keep telling them, hey, we both are in the business of giving hope, right? So you give hope about the Almighty, whether you believe Almighty exists or not. Most of us have not seen the Almighty, the God. So, but you are giving hope through that medium. And I'm also in the job of giving hope because we are creating something that has not been conceived before, that has not been built before. So hope is very, very important in this line of business. So that's the comparison I draw with my family. We are the same business of giving hope to people.
Yeah,
So it
that's
is a
really
spiritual
inspiring.
experience. So you are totally bang on.
Yeah, exciting. Actually, I haven't really talked too much about this, but it's a funny story. funny, it had a big impact on me. My first company, my first startup, I had left Oracle. I'd been, to the promised land and had a lot of fun, a lot of success. And I felt like I had made it Larry Ellison enough money and it was time for me to leave and build my own company. So I did it, but I did it with a couple partners they were good friends, but we weren't really suited for partnerships. And so we spent a lot of our own money to bootstrap this thing. And I remember at one point I was personally down to like $4,000 left in my bank account. And I'd already gone through it all. There was no other options. No, I'm like under my covers in my bed, literally crying, like there's nowhere else to go. I'm going to be a total failure. But it was in that moment, the next day I walked into our office and my partners decided to kind of do some other stuff outside the business. And I was like leading the organization. We had like 15, 20 employees and we'd already cut down a big staff. And at that point I was thinking, I have no other way to get through this. And so there was this little window in my office. And as I'm looking up, I could see the sky. And I remember looking up at this window and just literally getting down on my knees and going, God, if you're real, if this is a true experience that you can help people, this is, I need help. And that's a very selfish thing to ask, right? You're talking about a business where it's not like a health issue. But honestly, that was the moment that our business changed. I don't know how it happened, but like literally within the next couple of days, we had a $50,000 check come in and like we ended up getting acquired like, a year later. So I do believe that things happen for a reason, but there is a higher power. And since then, I look at things totally different. So, but I go back to that experience because it was a spiritual experience for me and it actually helped shape how I lead and how I try and inspire others. And anyway, it's,
For
I
sure. I mean,
think,
like, we can definitely start this conversation off agreeing to that. Totally.
yeah. So anyway, let's talk about you. I mean, you've had a few different startups, you got acquired, a lot of experiences that were very positive. What was it like when you first got acquired and walk us through what it's like? Because that's kind of the dream for a lot of founders is I'm going to build something, it's going to be valuable, we're going to get acquired, I'm going to go live on an island the rest of my life. But a
Totally.
lot of us don't do that. Walk us through that a little bit. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, I mean, like, it is surreal. There's no question about it. So, obviously, when there is interest, so one thing that is generally recommended is if you have a term sheet, if there's a real interest, don't start planning your island life yet, right? Because the transaction has to go through. But it's a very surreal experience because again, I've gone through very similar experiences that you laid out. I mean, like, when we sold the company just around that time, I was kind of fully broke. I had really no assets to my name, no savings, nothing like that. So from there to jumping to where we went after the acquisition in terms of net worth and all, it's a massive jump and leap. So it feels very humbling. It's a big validation moment in your life, no questions about that. But at the end of the day, the decision making process is very it's not straightforward is kind of what I would say, because you got to account for so many different factors, right? Not just you, but your team and your investors, your employees, and a whole bunch of stuff. So it kind of gets very overwhelming is what I would say, because obviously you are getting an acquisition offer when you're doing well, which means there is runway and roadmap to grow. So you are making this most fundamental decision. Do you want to bet for the much bigger outcome, or do you think this is kind of the right time to hang up and exit? Because what life after exit is not clear. There's no clarity there, right? You kind of have to figure it out from scratch. So it's a very overwhelming experience when you're kind of making that decision. And in fact, in a party last week, someone walked up to me and said, hey, I kind of have an offer, there is interest from a company to acquire, how should I make this decision? So my general recommendation in these kind of situations is you kind of have to be selfish. You have to give the most thought about you, your co-founder, the founders, and their immediate families, because they are the ones who are kind of bearing most of the brunt in terms of building the company. And it really has to come down to what you and your immediate family want in terms of outcomes, because you have the one, they are the ones who have kind of risked it the most, both in terms of capital risk, time risk, health risk, and all kinds of stuff. So it really has to be that. Of course, you can layer in other factors in terms of outcomes for your team. For example, the way we did it, we set aside a pool of money to distribute to our team, even team members who had not vested any stock, right? Who are kind of still within 12 months of serving within the company. So we set aside some money to distribute to them. We did a bunch of things like that. but ultimately the core decision has to come down to what you and your founders want, what kind of outcome they want, right? So that is my rubric in terms of making that call. And again, that's why these kind of things is better to have alignment before. So run through these scenarios before, have someone who has done it before advise you, and have alignment. Because when that offer comes, it'll very much possible it'll come at a time when you're not expecting it, and it's not like you have a lot of time to make a decision. You got to make a decision in a week, and there's never enough time to make these calls. And if you have especially more than two founders, three or four founders, it could get very complicated very soon, because bringing alignment is very difficult. So it's always good to have these chats once in a while and keep bringing alignment, so you're prepared for a situation like this. That's kind of my recollection of this in the last 3 to 4 years. But of course, I still
Yeah.
remember this. Me and my co-founder still agreed that conversation we had back and forth on whether to do it or not is private. We would never share outside who wanted to sell, who wanted to hold back. Finally, what mattered is we both aligned on the final decision. That's what matters. Rest is all private.
Yeah. And it
Yeah,
sounds like it'll stay private,
it
which
will
is
stay private
totally
for sure.
makes sense. Well, you went from being a founder and a leader and then a VP of a public company. What surprised you the most about that experience of now being at a public company and being a VP?
Yeah, I mean, like the thing that the biggest jump that I've seen, I experienced it. So, quick background, right? So, before this, I had served in a public company before, but in a much junior role, not in a senior role at all. So, the senior role was definitely an experience for me. So, the biggest thing that I realized, and it took a while for me to realize that is, look, in a startup, everybody's aligned on one single outcome, which is the company should succeed. That's kind of the primary outcome everybody aligns on, especially when you're small, 20, 50 member team. Everybody's kind of signed up for it, because that's the kind of people you bring in at that early stage of the company. Because as a founder, you are involved and betting in hiring every hire that you make. You exactly know what kind of people you want to bring in, and you ensure that everybody's totally aligned to a point where people literally resign if they think they are not being valuable to the company, right? They will do that in a startup. That's the kind of alignment you have. But in a large company, that's not the case. Priorities are different, and in most cases, people could very much possible have an even split on priorities. They want the company to succeed, obviously, but they also want their position, their salary to be taken care. So that's a very clear split people have. Equal priorities, because people have lives. They have to take care of whatever in their lives, right? Family, mortgage, this, that, and all of that. So that is something that I didn't think it through fully. So I kind of went in with a mode that I'm going to treat this like my next startup, and I'm going to blast my way through in. Obviously, I found a lot of resistance, so I had to course correct and all of that. But I did have this alignment with the CEO of the company that acquired us. Like, I'm going to put my job in risk to make things work here. If you fire me, so be it. But I'm going to really push to make things happen. And I did do that, till the end. I left, but it was with a lot of fighting. That's what I realized. Big companies operate very differently, and you can't blame anyone. People just operate naturally, right? They want to defend their position title, what they are
Yeah.
doing, and it's very natural how people operate. That's a big learning for me.
Yeah. I remember when I was at Oracle, I was, had gotten promoted. I went from like a inside sales rep role where you're basically just smiling and dialing all day long. They have like a ticker on the wall of how much revenue each rep is doing a day, and over 300 reps are looking at the wall judging themselves based on what they're contributing to the company. And basically you get fired after like a year and a half, or you get promoted, and the promotion is to get to the field where the money you make like an X's. So you make nothing for a year and a half, and then all of a sudden you're like living a totally different life. And I got promoted. I moved to New York City. That's where they put me. And in that experience, I remember the management team, the middle management team, everybody was aggressive, and everyone communicated in a way that was like they were defending their territory, their region, their sales team, and they were fighting for new accounts or protecting revenue or commissions that came in. And so I was like, wow, you have to have that character to be a middle manager at Oracle, or you're not going to make it. That was kind of like
Totally,
the culture.
totally,
And so I always remember that, and always thought, do I have the character to make it as a middle manager in Oracle? And, you could do it different ways, though. It doesn't have to be that way. It could be your own way. Everyone inspires people differently. So it was, I remember that experience. The company you have today, walk us through that, because you had experiences. Now AI is transforming everything. What inspired you to start Petavue? What problem did you see in the data analytics space that convinced you this was worth building another company? Walk me through the product you're building and who needs it.
Sure. A lot of inspiration to start this company, focus on this problem, actually came from my work at ZoomInfo. So part of my job was VP of engineering. I was heading a few data products, among other things. And I developed very strong conviction that the data space has structural problems leading to huge inefficiencies, like massive inefficiencies. I would actually say that data teams are one of the most inefficient teams in an enterprise because you're like far away from your goals. You have this massive dream that, oh, you want to bring all data together, the entire company should be data driven, but you're not even 5% there. That's what I kind of learned and realized. And it's a structural problem. The way data stack has evolved has led to a point of why we are where. And I felt that a combination of lower compute cost, how much general cloud technologies have advanced, and what AI can deliver, I strongly felt that not just me, both all the three of us, all of us, had strong data, background in ZoomInfo, the three founders of Petavue, and together we kind of strongly felt that this is a massive problem for us to go and attack and solve, where you can actually deliver 10x or even 100x productivity gains in a real way. And we are already starting to see that happen with our customers, where customers are really dropping pre-AI tools, even like Salesforce, Einstein, Tableau, Snowflake, and then moving over to Petavue because they see extreme productivity gains in being able to do, a consolidated way, one tool that can do, what four different tools can do. Not just it's going to save money, but huge time savings and clarity. That's what is missing. So I'll give you an example of why I say it's a structural problem, right, in data. One simple thing kind of exposes the structural problem. By the time you get to metrics and reports that you present to an executive, there are like five people kind of who are involved in the pipeline of building that, right? There's a data engineer who's bringing data together, then there's an analyst who's kind of building the metrics, then there's another business person who's kind of building the reports and the insights on top of it. There are like 4 or 5 people get involved to a point where by the time these insights reach executives in a board meeting or weekly review meetings, there's no one person who can exactly explain how this whole thing has come up, because there are 3 or 4 different people involved and spread across 3 or 4 different teams. That is what you would actually call as structural inefficiency. There's no single owner for these things, and that causes massive problem. And it is evolved like this because the stack is very tech heavy, which means the people who are needed to bring all the data together, calculate the metrics, you need technical people. But then these technical people don't have business context. The business context is provided by someone else, and there's always a communication gap, and these things become very, very slow and inefficient. So that's why I call it as a structural issue. The only way you can solve this is bringing all of these things together, and thankfully AI can bridge the gap between a business person with business context who doesn't have tech skills, but they can actually give them tech skills because AI can write the code. That's how we kind of zeroed in on this problem. And another thing I'll tell you why we picked this problem is we had the conviction that AI will be much better off in terms of giving accurate results that are not subjective. So math is not subjective; either it's right or wrong. Now, the first challenge with that is, you're not 99% accurate. You're either 100% accurate or 100% wrong. So it will take a while before you get there to 100% accuracy, but when you get there you can define it. There is absolutely no subjectivity. That's why we said this is the problem we liked, because it kind of checked all the boxes for us. Massive problem, big TAM, but also you can deliver neat accurate results that are not subject to people thinking whether it's right or wrong. No, we can defend that the results are accurate. That's why we picked this problem. We still continue to build and grow on that conviction we came up with 18 months before.
Yeah, really cool. Give us a use case. Who's the persona you're selling to in a company, and what is it at the end of the day, the outcome they're going to get by using your solution?
Got it. So today, the personas who are using us are business teams, mostly business ops teams, marketing, sales ops, CX ops. The primary challenge that they face is they have data in disparate systems, typically their core marketing and sales systems, and these stacks are massive. They have data spread across a few tens of systems out there, and it's almost impossible for them to bring all this data together and automate, the job of creating metrics and reporting on them and extracting insights. the only way people do all of this is through Excel sheets. And I'm sure all of us can agree it's extremely inefficient, right? To do it in Excel sheet, because doing it itself is tough, but maintaining is 10x harder, because you have to manually maintain all these things on a daily basis. That's kind of the core problem. And this is the age old problem. Even if you go back and look at Tableau's pitch 20 years before, this is exactly the problem that they pitched for. Hey, sales teams, you don't need dependency on ID teams to actually do this. And that's exactly what Tableau pitched 20 years before. We are back over at it, the same thing. So today, the clear value that people see are two very clear and obvious value with Petavue. One is their ability to bring all this data together and compute metrics and get to insights. The productivity gains there is massive. Quoting our customers, they say, "What used to take 2 days for me, it takes 20 minutes in Petavue." That's literally a quote from one of the calls that we had. In fact, one customer, after the pilot, we asked them, "Hey, what's the value of you using Petavue?" They actually almost got offended. They're like, "How can you even ask that question to me? It's so massive value." Right? So almost they kind of got offended in that call that I would even bring that question up. So that's kind of the productivity gains we are seeing. But the other bigger value, in my opinion, which is across the org productivity, is when you present these numbers, since it's one system where the end-to-end calculation is happening. So it's almost like Petavue is taking the data from source. It will do all the do your data cleanup. It will do the metric calculation and insights on top of the metric by bringing multiple metrics together. The whole thing is done in one singular system in a simple chat GPT kind of a conversation, right? So what that means is there is clear visibility and trust you are building in all these insights when you report to people. So anyone who's consuming these insights can see the simple conversation in English, and they know exactly how this insight was derived, which in our line of business we strongly believe that that is a massive advantage, because today most of the times people spend time debating about, is this number accurate? Hey, I also calculate the same metric, but I'm getting a different number. What filter did you put? This back and forth is really taking productivity off the teams, and the opportunity cost is high because you're not making decisions fast enough. Hey, you're supposed to make decisions with data, but you're just debating if these numbers are right or wrong. So what happens is most of the time and effort is just gone to ensuring that you report the right numbers to the executives, but anyone below a SVP or VP level is just not getting any insights, because your team is just so busy just taking care of the top of the layer of your organization. Anybody else does not get anything. They're all operating on intuition. That is wrong. That's a massive gap, and that's what we're going to fill. We're already seeing just in the first month of using Petavue, right? So we are seeing customers do massive amount of reporting and insights in just a month that would have taken them a few months. That's kind of what we hear from customers.
Yeah. Well, I took a look at your website. You have a video of walking through how it works and what you get and the results. And I can tell you firsthand from our own experience going to the board and presenting numbers and having one person say, this is the forecast, and another person saying, well, we're going to look at a different number because this deal fell through. And like nobody seems to be aligned at times when you're having these big executive meetings. So if
Exactly.
it is a single source of truth with real data that is across disparate systems, and you have one application that can pull it all together and everyone's on the same page and you can look at things differently, but you get the same result, I think it's a no-brainer.
Exactly right. So, see, single source of truth is not formed only because you bring all the data to one place. That's not single source of truth. Single source of truth happens only if there is clear alignment. Just bringing everything together does not mean single source of truth. Everybody should align that, yeah, this makes sense, and we all can understand and agree. In the pre AI world of doing analysis and insights, that has never happened. So, you're right, bang on.
Yeah. You're competing against companies like Tableau, Power BI, Looker, and others. You said that they can't keep up because they're doing piecemeal AI. Make the case for why agentic native architecture beats retrofitted AI.
So yeah, so I'll repeat the same. There, it's piecemeal AI. What these companies are doing. I go back to what I said a few minutes before, which is there is structural inefficiencies. What most of these tools are doing, for example, if you look at the AI in Tableau or Looker, you still have to do all the work manually in terms of computing the metrics in a different tool, cleaning up the data in a different tool. You still have to do all of that, and then these tools are literally just doing very basic filtering and explanation of those filters at the top layer, and they've always remained a top layer tool, right? So dashboards and reporting engines have remained a top layer tool. They continue to remain at that layer, and they are not consolidating vertically. And if you don't do that, you don't remove those inefficiencies, your productivity gains are not seeing. And most importantly, the full visibility in terms of understanding very deeply how exactly certain numbers are calculated, it'll never happen. If you don't deliver the productivity advantages and visibility, you're not going to break. This is not breakthrough solution, and people don't want that. People will see through that very soon. So that's why we strongly believe those teams, those companies cannot pull it off. And of course, they have massive disadvantages, right? Innovators dilemma, they'll always go through that. So they have to break that and rethink, re-architect the entire platform and engine to be able to figure this out. That's not happening. I mean, like,
Yeah.
if there's anything I'm very, very confident about, it's that.
Yeah. Well, you're unlocking something I think is really incredible. And you talked about how quickly it gets results and they're accurate. Tell me about the process of connecting disparate systems that have data in them, like Salesforce, HubSpot, maybe the data warehouse of a company, and three other systems to Petavue. Everything's connected. What's happening under the hood in those 20 to 30 minutes from connecting to insights that would normally take 2 days?
Got it. So first thing is, Jake, I think it's very important to align on one thing, right? So, and it's funny. I was in a event in Bay Area, a couple of days before, and there's one scaled up startup CEO. Actually, they're operating in the service support space. He actually stood up and say, "Hey, we are in the world of non-determinism, and everybody kind of has to get used to, results not being accurate all the time. We should all get used to non-deterministic outcomes." I totally disagree with that, and it's very shocking that it came from a CEOs operating in AI, delivering AI solutions. Nothing could be far from the truth. People are not going to rely on or accept non-deterministic inaccurate results once in a while. Nobody wants that. That just because AI things makes things faster, it's not going to change fundamental behavior. People still expect things to be right and accurate, that they can rely on, so that they can go and conduct their business like the way they want, right? So it's very, very important to understand that. And that's the job of building AI startups. LLMs are already getting you there 80%. The real effort is making it 100% accurate. And that's literally what, in my opinion, startups have to do in whatever use cases that they're targeting. And that's where the opportunity even relies at the end of the day. So accuracy is, you cannot compromise on that. You have to deliver it. And that's kind of our motto. It's always been that. In fact, I keep telling my team, when we are building the architecture, our order of priority is accuracy, latency, and cost. This is the order of priority. Until you solve the accuracy problem, don't go for the latency or the cost problem. You can take care of those problems later. First, you have to solve the problem of accuracy. It's always been our motto. So to walk you through what happens, so you connect your systems, and again, the goal is 30 minutes, right? You don't want 2 days to do analysis. 30 minutes to do analysis, and most importantly, accurate. You want results that you can rely upon, that you can go and take it to your board and report and not get fired for that, right? So people are going to make big decisions. So 30 minutes. So you connect your systems. Petavue instantly pulls metadata from these systems, tries to understand what data you have, what objects, what columns, what do these columns mean, maps to your business. In the context of your business, what could these data points actually mean? We instantly create what we call as a semantic layer. So all of the data points are very clearly explained in plain English, both for the LLM and the AI engine to understand, and also for the user to understand and review, right? This is what kind of happening instantly almost, right? And depending on what data tools you're connecting, we either choose to sync the data to our side, kind of building a warehouse of sorts underneath, or we keep the data where it is, right? That is purely a decision of optimization in terms of query times and all of that. But essentially, if your data set is small, we don't sync anything, we just keep it there. Now, when you run queries, when you run an analysis, what happens in Petavue is, and if you're okay, I can actually walk you through a couple of examples. I'm not sure if we can do a screen share here, or I can send you a video recording later. But what happens with Petavue is that you ask a question at a very high level, right? Let's say you're asking questions saying, "Hey, I want to understand what happened to my campaigns, performance of my campaigns in the last 2 months, but I want to correlate that with outcomes, in terms of what happened in the pipeline, right? What my sales teams ended up doing." And typically, this data set is there in 2, 3 different systems. Your campaign data itself could be spread across something like an outreach and marketing system, and then your actual real performance data of the deals is obviously sitting in Salesforce. But you want to understand the full impact of your campaigns. So Petavue recognizes what you want, maps your business intent to data, and presents a plan that you can control. The most important thing here is You kind of control how the analysis is done, but without having to do all the hard work. It exactly gives a very nice plan that you can quickly review and approve, saying, okay, this way of analysis where you bring data from these two systems and actually correlate with the third system and doing calculations like this, you can look at that and approve. That gives you immense confidence that the system is actually thinking in the right direction and working in the right direction. And once you approve the plan, we have built enough verification underneath in the system to guarantee the execution of that plan is accurate, 100% accurate. So that's where kind of the secret sauce or the differentiator really comes into the picture. We have built very deep tech to make that happen. And all of this happening in 10 minutes, right? So in a span of 10 minutes. So what we are seeing is, people, once we threw this open to our customers, they're doing massive analysis and use cases beyond our wildest imagination. Actually, a lot of our customers are even using it for planning use cases, data driven capacity planning for next year. What should be my forecasting be, right? So how many reps should I hire, and what should the quota that I should give them if this is the revenue that I want to reach next year? But all of that data driven based on what's happening last year. Variety of different kinds of use cases, all data driven decision making. This is what we are seeing. And very clearly, people don't want to go back to their old way of doing things. Old way would have been just bring everything to Excel sheet and do it, or wait for your data team for 2 months to actually do this. This is 20 minutes tops. It's massive difference.
Yeah. God, there's so many questions I have, and I know we don't have a ton of time here, but I do want to get to some important stuff as well that I think really is like the secret sauce we're seeing a lot of startups deploy, which is helping them succeed versus others. And it's really bridging the gap between what their product should do and the outcomes they want it to do versus these pilot projects that you try and get up and running and they don't often deliver and they fail. And we're in the business of helping companies grow and hire and find the right people. The demand we're getting the most of out of any role today from AI startups is forward deployed engineers. And I know there's a big gap to be bridged with that kind of experience, combination of technical and business and customer engagement. Let's talk about this a little bit. Some people say it's just consulting with extra steps. Others say it's the future of software. You're building a hybrid model. What's the truth that both sides are missing about FDEs?
Yeah, sure. I think it's a very important critical component to make this work. If you take a step back, why do you even need a human in the loop? Let's just call it human in the loop for the second, and we'll get to why it's called FD. Why do you even need a human in the loop to make this work? It's a more fundamental question. And how is that different from typical customer implementation that has been there part of SaaS, forever? The most important thing that we have come to realize is this kind of a chicken and egg problem, right? Which is you want to make this software that you're building, which AI native conversational interface, work really out of the box, for all kinds of imagined scenarios and use cases that your customers want it to work. If that's kind of the ideal situation, right? If you were to do that, then many of these things kind of won't matter. It's like typical SaaS, you do implementation, move on. But you cannot get to that point of ideal state without customers have actually using it, because you need the usage and the data point to even determine what are the use cases that you make this work for, what are those edge cases, where are the rough edges, before your thing can actually work 100% for all the kind of questions and the use cases and the prompts people are actually putting. Again, the important thing to understand here, Jake, is if you're doing consumer, if you're doing ChatGPT, I'm sure all of us can realize that ChatGPT is not like it gives you answers for all the questions that you ask. A lot of cases, it's not able to turn around and give you the kind of answer that you want. But it's a $30 tool, you will forgive it, right? But you're selling a 10K, 20K, 30K license in an enterprise. People are expecting this tool to give them the outcomes all the time. They are not okay with 7 on 10. They want 10 on 10. And you cannot do 10 on 10 unless you even know what people want. It's a classic chicken and egg problem. And that is where we strongly believe, and not just believe, we have already operationalized it and we are seeing massive impact, is you need humans in the loop. And the way these humans have to operate is kind of very different from how customer implementation teams and post-sales teams have operated in the SaaS era. So the name of the game here is to be very, very proactive. That's what we call internally. So you cannot wait for the customer and the user to come and tell you that, I asked this question, I don't think the system understood what I want, or it's giving me something else. Can you help? That's not going to happen, because people are still building trust in your systems. They're still on pilot. They're not on your long-term contract yet. So it's not like they're fully bought in. So you are kind of in a situation where they're not fully bought in. They're still building trust. but it's working only 7 out of 10. So how do you bridge the trust? How do you get them to 10 on 10, believing that the system can give them an outcome every time that they want? That's where humans in the loop is kind of very important. And the thing is, you can't put a non-technical person who understands the product, does not understand the product, in front of customers, because these conversations get technical very soon, and someone needs to diagnose and investigate what's happening in the product to even understand if that particular prompt or a question that a user asked, does it fall in 7 on 10 where it's working, or 3 on 10? So it's very complicated that way. So you need technical people out talking to your customer in a proactive sense, not even waiting for a customer to ask question. So if you bring all of this thing together, it starts to look very different than typical SaaS customer success. And some people are calling it forward deployed engineers to make this work. This is how I think about it, especially when you're doing this in mid market. This is not a case where you go and gather requirements and just building the product along with the customer. Our customers, they don't have the patience. They want something working. That's what they want. So we are not building the product with them, but we are just massaging the rough edges based on the usage that they're giving to make it 10 on 10 instead of 8 on 10. 8 on 10 is what we see in our product today without human in the loop. This is
Yeah.
how I would explain it, and it's creating a massive impact for us, massive difference.
Yeah. Yeah, we've heard crazy stories where, Palantir 20 years ago created this idea about the forward deployed engineer. And, we see companies today that we were just having a call with one of our clients who had deployed a very big proof of concept. And the way they got through it and succeeded was to deploy forward deployed engineers. And in that experience, they were able to capture a lot of requirement requests that the customer had that the product didn't currently have. And they were able to bridge that gap, bring that back to the product and engineering team, and build these features in, which for their next customer, which was a big name that everyone would know, decided to use their platform. And it was like a massive size deal, but it was the features from the previous company that helped them build into the platform that the next customer got value from. So it also helped them continue to build their product with more value in it as they got new customers. So there's almost like a double value that you get from that type of skill set within your team. The question is for a lot of companies is, well, if you don't have a title of a forward deployed engineer, how do you find these people? Right? Like they have a different title from the past. Maybe it's a solution engineer, or they're an account manager who's also a technical person. It's kind of you have to massage that out a little bit.
You're right. I think that's where the opportunity is to help companies here. This is definitely a title or a person with multiple skill sets, overlapping skill sets, and it's not going to be easy or straightforward to go and bring someone in for this, or even promote. You have other people in your team, just move them to this. There is little bit nuance to this, and that's where I think there's a very clear opportunity to help, both in terms of hiring people, or even in terms of, like we discussed in our last call, even in terms of setting up an operation where you supply these people, right? So it's some kind of an outsourcing. I think there's going to be a combination of this, but there is definitely a massive, in fact, even before hiring people, there's even opportunity to educate. Even going and telling companies, hey, today if you're doing AI in enterprise without a human in the loop in this model, it's just not going to work. I don't think people have even realized that yet. So it
Mm.
starts with that education, and then once they understand it, then the next question they'll ask is, okay, what am I? How do I even bring these people in? Then someone can go and offer help. There's a massive, opportunity there, in my opinion. It's a scale AI scale opportunity. That's how I put it.
Yeah. It's interesting. AI agents are being developed, it seems like for all parts of the enterprise. And, they're orchestrating and they're doing the work that people want to get done, that, basically technology is helping them do it. Do you think that there is going to be an opportunity in the future for like an AI agent to be a forward deployed engineer, that it's actually asyncing and doing the work that instead of having to hire someone to go on site and that human in the loop, which we need now. But do you think in the future there is an opportunity for an AI agent to be a forward deployed engineer? Or
Yeah,
is
for sure.
that,
It's partly yes. In fact, what we have analyzed already is, out of all the data points from the FDs that we have deployed, what we have already identified opportunity to automate, agentify parts of what they're doing so they can be more efficient. This is something
yeah,
that we're already seeing. So you could call that we are kind of trying out, experimenting an agentic FD of sorts. But I think for someone to launch that as a product by itself, we need a little bit more clarity here in terms of what's happening. That's would be
yeah,
my take. because people have not yet figured out how to agentify business functions that have been established for decades. That itself is kind of being figured out. This is almost like a function that's getting established as we speak. So
Yeah.
agentifying that would probably need more clarity. I
Yeah.
mean, agentifying, at least productizing that, would we need more clarity here, is what I would say.
Yeah. It's interesting. There's so many different areas of innovation happening within AI. You recently had been at Dreamforce and you were talking about a story where someone had, stood up and really with a lot of courage said, we want to see breakthroughs in AI, not piecemeal AI. It was a room full of Salesforce executives promoting Agent Force. And from your opinion, what do you think is really happening with AI adoption in enterprise and with the big vendors that aren't really talking to us about?
Sure. I mean, like, we hear what we hear on the news from Salesforce and all of that, but beyond that, I'm kind of closely connected with people in few public companies, and I have a good sense of what's happening beyond what you hear in the news, right? Under the hood, what's happening. So there's
Yeah.
definitely a adoption challenge. There's no question about it, because we have oversimplified this. We have sold too much of a dream without realizing that what people need. I go back to what I said before. People will not compromise on accuracy. People don't want to live with non-determinism and all of that. In the context of doing business, people are used to getting things done right, and I don't think nobody's going to change that. So it needs a lot of engineering and effort to get products there, and it's not like executives are explicitly stating it. Hey, don't come to me with results that are not accurate, but that's what they expect. It's important for builders to understand that and move in that direction. Everybody's doing pilots. Pilots are great because everybody wants to test it out. Everybody wants to be ahead of the curve. So it's almost like we are in a situation where buyers have to put so much effort in finding vendors than the reverse, because they're like, so many people offering so many things. Who are you going to take a bet on? Because there's no proof anybody has kind of figured it out. We are in that situation. So it's extremely early stage of adoption. If someone were to come out today and start a company on any of the major massive use cases where a lot of funding has been raised, I think the opportunity is still wide open. That's how I'd put it.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. I want to fast forward 5 years from now. What does the data analyst role look like? Does it exist? What does a company's data stack look like if you win?
Sure. On the role, I think it'll definitely continue to exist. I don't think with current technology and whatever engineering we can do on top of it, foreseeable engineering, even in the next 5 years, I'm not sure if the role itself is at risk. But what's going to happen is people are probably going to have the same number of analysts, or maybe a little bit less. See, it'll kind of shuffle around, right? Some companies will try to optimize immediately and let go of a few people, but some companies will be like, let me retain the people or even get more, but let me get 10x more insights. So there will be some shuffling around that will happen for the role. But I do think that human intervention and guidance is going to be critical in the age of AI, especially to get far more 10x outcomes. That's what is going to happen with the role, is my belief. So if you are an analyst today, if you're picking up your next job, if you're choosing what company to work for, you have to work for a company who has an opinion on these kind of things. How are they thinking about AI? Are they really thinking about AI as job killer, or are they thinking about AI as a 10x multiplier with the same team? That's the kind of company you want to go for. Not just analyst, any role for that matter, right? So that's how I would think about it, and how the role will evolve. Now, in terms of the stack, I do strongly believe that people move towards a more consolidated stack, because that's where, so consolidation is going to happen before the consolidation happens. The next 5 years is definitely a consolidation wave, because only with a consolidated stack you can see real AI productivity gains. You cannot see productivity gains if it just continue to split across 3 or 4 different tools. It's not going to happen. And you're already starting to see that happen with other stacks. In CRM, you're already seeing AI native consolidating. All the AI native CRMs, they are pretty much giving you the stuff that you are getting from 5 different tools today. They're just bringing the whole thing together. So it comes with native call recording and call transcripts. AI native CRM will just come with that, right? So that is how it's going to happen in any use case, any stack for that matter. Consolidation before things get standardized, and deconsolidation will happen. Best of the breed of the world. And until there is no standard, you cannot have multiple tools interacting and figuring things out. So that's what I expect to happen in the next 5 years.
Yeah. Well, exciting times for innovation and AI in particular. We're right around the corner, 2026. What are you excited about? What's on the roadmap as we head into the new year?
Our roadmap is pretty exciting. I think So we are launching extremely agentic native capabilities. We're going to redo the entire phenomenon of dashboards in the BI era. We're going to rebuild it, very agentic native dashboards. So one problem that we are targeting is creating dashboard is kind of 10% of the work. Maintaining dashboard is 90% of the work. We've already solved the problem of creating, but we are going to also automate maintenance of dashboards, fully automated agentic. So we are kind of going in that direction. We are very excited about the opportunity to do next personalized insights to everyone in the company. I think that's where organizations will move. As I said, if you can do insights fast, can I do insights for everyone? That's kind of the question people are going to ask. And we are kind of heavily moving in that direction. And doing all of this, keeping in mind, you can deliver, again, verified, accurate results that people can run their business on. Not, they're already second guessing their metrics. You don't want another layer of second guessing. Nobody's going to appreciate that.
Yeah, got it. Exciting. Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing what your continued growth looks like and innovation. If anybody wants to find Petavue, where do they go?
Petavue.com. It's all out there. It's easy to reach out to us. Find me in LinkedIn, text me. I'm pretty responsive. And we would love to work with you if you have the kind of problems that we spoke about.
Very cool. Well, Prasanna, thanks so much for joining us today. I had a lot of learning experiences with you, which I love, and hopefully the audience got that too. I thank you as well for joining us. It means a lot to me that you spent your time with us here. I'm your host, Jake Aaron Villarreal, signing off for now, but can't wait to catch up with you all in the next episode. Until then, Prasanna, the world, take care. If you like what we're doing, don't forget to subscribe. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. And follow us on YouTube, where we go behind the scenes to learn what it takes to be a startup founder.